They say it's lonely at the top, but for the chosen woman, the loneliness started long before she ever reached it, not because she wasn't loved, but because she refused to shrink. Because she chose her voice over their approval, because she understood this truth. The road to purpose is narrow, and not everyone is meant to walk beside you. The chosen woman doesn't fit in. She outgrows. She doesn't follow the crowd, she redefines the path. While others chase validation, she chooses vision. And with that vision comes separation, solitude, and silence. Not as a punishment, but as preparation. Because when you're chosen, you're called away from what is common. Your isolation is not rejection, it is refinement. You walk alone, not because you're unloved, but because you're unmatched. And that's what makes your journey sacred. She is not easily understood, and she has made peace with that because she finally realized that being understood is not the same as being aligned. The chosen woman walks through life carrying a quiet depth that the world is not always prepared to receive. She speaks a language of purpose that shallow minds can't decode, and dreams in dimensions that small thinking can't comprehend. In a society obsessed with labels and simplicity, she is layered, nuanced, and sometimes even misunderstood by those closest to her, not because she's broken, but because she's built differently. Her thoughts spiral upward like smoke from a sacred fire, formed from pain, perspective, and profound insight. She sees through illusions, senses shifts before they happen, and trusts feelings that others haven't even named yet. Conversations that feel normal to others often feel empty to her, not because she thinks she's better, but because she hungers for more. More substance, more truth, more depth. She doesn't speak just to speak. Her words carry weight. And when she chooses silence, it's not because she has nothing to say. It's because she knows not everyone can handle what she's holding. People try to read her like a headline when she's a novel soaked in symbolism. They ask her to explain herself, but how do you explain the ocean to someone who's only ever seen a glass of water? She is intuitive, magnetic, and mysterious, not by choice, but by design. And yes, sometimes it's lonely when the crowd looks at you with confusion instead of connection, when people misjudge your silence for arrogance or mistake your strength for coldness. But she no longer contorts herself to be understood by minds that are not prepared to meet her where she is. She knows now that confusion is part of calling, that some people are meant to misunderstand her because their opinion was never meant to shape her journey. She stopped translating her soul into simpler terms just to make others comfortable. She's not here to make sense. She's here to make impact. Her path isn't about popularity. It's about purpose. And she knows that those who are meant for her, those who are aligned with her frequency, will feel her spirit even when they don't understand every word she says. She is not a question to be answered. She is a presence to be experienced. So she walks forward, unbothered by who doesn't get her, and focused on what she's here to become. Because the truth is, when you are chosen, you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to awaken, to challenge, to inspire, and to leave a mark that only an uncommon soul could make. She doesn't settle for surface connections, because she knows that shallow waters may sparkle in the sun, but they can't hold depth or truth. The chosen woman is not interested in relationships built on convenience, image, or performance. She is drawn to energy that feels honest, raw, and soul level. She has no time for small talk that goes nowhere, for compliments that come with conditions, or for the kind of loyalty that disappears the moment she stops pleasing others. She's seen enough to know that not everyone smiling in your face is clapping for your spirit. So she stopped entertaining connections that only scratch the surface of who she really is. She wants eye contact that doesn't flinch when she speaks her truth. She wants conversations that stretch her, challenge her, and honor the woman she's becoming. She doesn't want to be around people who only love the edited version of her. They must embrace the unfiltered, unpolished, fully present version 2. She has no desire to perform just to be accepted. She would rather be alone in her authenticity than surrounded by people who only love her when she's quiet, agreeable, or convenient. That's why her circle is smaller now. That's why she retreats when the vibe feels off. That's why she no longer tries to force connections that lack spiritual oxygen. Because she understands something powerful. Forced energy always fades, but aligned energy flows without effort. She walks away from anything that feels fake, even if it's familiar. She knows that surface connections come with surface support. And she's building a life that requires soul-deep loyalty. She's looking for depth, not drama. Purpose, not popularity. She's attracted to people who speak from their spirit, not their ego. And yes, this choice to stay true to herself has made her lonely at times. But it's a loneliness that heals. She sits with her solitude like a queen on her throne, knowing that what's meant for her will never require her to shrink, twist, or dilute her essence. She doesn't chase validation, she protects her vibration, and because of that, the right energy finds her, not when she's pretending, but when she's fully herself. That's the paradox of the chosen woman. Her refusal to settle often isolates her, but it also sanctifies her. It sets her apart, not because she thinks she's better, but because she knows her worth. She's not cold, she's clear. And she's not angry, she's aligned. She simply understands that connection without authenticity is emptiness in disguise. So she waits, not passively, but powerfully. She builds, she heals, she grows. And in doing so, she becomes the kind of woman who no longer needs to be surrounded to feel seen, because her connection to herself is deeper than any shallow bond could ever reach. A chosen woman demands more, not just from others, but from herself, because she knows she was not created to live a life of mediocrity or to play small so others can feel comfortable in her presence. She holds herself to a higher standard, not because she's trying to prove anything, but because she's aware of who she is and what she carries. Excellence is not a goal for her, it's a way of being. She doesn't just show up, she shows up prepared. She doesn't just speak, she speaks with intention. She doesn't just love, she loves with depth and discernment. And because of that, she automatically raises the temperature in any room she walks into. People feel her presence before she says a word, and not everyone can handle that. Her standards become a mirror to those who are not willing to rise. And instead of reflecting and growing, many retreat. The insecure call her intimidating. The average call her too much. But she is not here to be manageable. She is here to be memorable. She doesn't apologize for expecting respect, honesty, effort, or depth, because she gives all of those things without hesitation. She's not looking for perfection, but she will not entertain inconsistency, excuses, or half-hearted anything. She's worked too hard to heal herself, to discipline her mind, to elevate her spirit, to accept less than what aligns with that evolution. And if that means walking alone, so be it. She would rather walk in truth, in peace, in power, than surround herself with people who dilute her vision or drain her energy. Her solitude is not a sign of lack, it's proof of her standards. She is not waiting for people to catch up to her frequency. She's moving at the pace of purpose. She doesn't slow down to be understood by those who are comfortable staying stuck. She refuses to compromise her calling just to be accepted by the crowd. She knows that if it costs her authenticity, it's too expensive. So she demands more, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment with the greatness inside her. She's not asking anyone to be what they're not. She's just not pretending to be less than what she is. And yes, that standard will cause some to withdraw, to gossip, to misunderstand her. But she doesn't flinch, because she's not living for approval. She's living for impact. She's not chasing likes. She's chasing legacy. And only those willing to elevate with her can walk beside her. Everyone else, she blesses them from a distance and keeps moving forward, gracefully but unapologetically. Because when a chosen woman refuses to compromise, The world calls her difficult, but destiny calls her unstoppable. She has a calling that requires separation, and while the world may not always understand her silence, she has learned to honor it. Because she knows that destiny does not scream over noise, it whispers through stillness. In a world that celebrates being constantly seen, constantly available, constantly busy, the chosen woman chooses to withdraw, not because she's hiding, but because she's listening. She understands that divine direction doesn't come through chaos, it comes through clarity, and clarity is born in solitude. She doesn't fear being alone. In fact, she welcomes it. Her solitude is not isolation, it's incubation. It's where her spirit aligns with her purpose, where distractions fade and vision sharpens. The chosen woman knows that the calling on her life cannot be downloaded through social comparison, groupthink, or external applause. It comes through sacred quiet, where she can hear the instructions that weren't meant for anyone else to understand but her. And yes, that often means stepping back from what is familiar. It means saying no to invitations that don't align, walking away from conversations that don't align, walking away from conversations that feel empty, and distancing herself from energy that disrupts. Her peace. She's not being distant, she's being devoted. Devoted to what she's building, what she's becoming, and what she's been assigned to birth into the world. She knows that if the enemy can't destroy her, he'll try to distract her. And so she guards her focus like it's gold, because it is. Her purpose doesn't allow her to be everywhere, with everyone, doing everything. She moves with intention, because every step matters, every choice is connected, and every moment spent entertaining what is not meant for her takes her further from what is. That's why her life doesn't look like everyone else's. That's why her journey feels different, lonelier, deeper. She is not built for ordinary, and therefore cannot live by ordinary patterns. While others seek popularity, she seeks purpose. While they look outward for validation, she looks inward for vision. Her separation is not rejection, it is refinement. It's that she refuses to shrink. And that refusal becomes uncomfortable for those who are still hiding, still performing, still trying to make peace with pieces of themselves they haven't dared to face. She doesn't ask for attention, but attention finds her. Not because of noise, but because of energy. Her self-respect is radiant. Her boundaries are firm. Her silence has substance. And people who are used to superficiality are often unnerved by that kind of authenticity. She forces reflection without trying. And in a world where masks are the norm, her truth becomes disruptive. She becomes a mirror, reflecting back to others the places where they are still uncertain, still wounded, still pretending. And while some are inspired by her, others retreat. Not because she's done anything wrong, but because they're not ready to meet themselves at the level where she has already arrived. She doesn't dim her light to make others feel comfortable, but she also doesn't burn with ego. She simply stands in her power without apology. And when you've worked to become whole, when you've fought through insecurity, self-doubt, heartbreak, and emerged with clarity and self-love, you stop accepting discomfort in the name of being liked. That clarity repels the confused. That peace disrupts the chaotic. And that power, that quiet, unshakable power, it terrifies those who haven't cultivated their own. She doesn't walk in fear, so fearful people call her intimidating. She doesn't chase approval, so approval seekers label her difficult. But she doesn't internalize their discomfort because she understands what's really happening. It's not her they fear. It's what she represents. She is living proof that you can survive the breaking and still rise whole. That you can love yourself enough to walk away. That you can be soft and strong, vulnerable and unmovable, all at once. And for those who are still searching, still settling, still seeking themselves in others, her existence becomes a challenge they are not ready to accept. But she doesn't shrink. She doesn't soften her truth to make it more digestible. She doesn't dilute her light to keep the insecure close. She blesses them anyway, from a distance, Because a chosen woman is not responsible for how others receive her, only for how authentically she shows up. And she will always choose authenticity, even if it means walking alone. Because her strength isn't in how loud she speaks, it's in how deeply she knows herself. And when a woman truly knows herself, she becomes unstoppable. And yes, sometimes a little intimidating. She protects her peace like it's sacred. Because it is. To the chosen woman, peace is not a luxury. It's a lifeline, a non-negotiable sanctuary she's fought too hard to build and refuses to let anyone violate. She doesn't let just anyone into her world, her space, or her spirit. Not because she's arrogant, but because she's aware. Aware that not every smile is sincere, not every presence is pure, and not every conversation is harmless. She's learned that energy is contagious, and that chaos doesn't always come with noise. It can enter quietly, masked as charm, disguised as friendship, even cloaked in opportunity. That's why she watches more than she speaks, discerns more than she reacts, and pulls away before her peace is compromised. She used to explain herself, used to overextend, used to try to fix people and hold together relationships that drain her, but not anymore. Now she understands that boundaries are not walls to keep people out, they are gates to protect what's within. Her peace is her power, and she guards it like a queen guards her crown. Firmly, and her peace gives us courage, gracefully and without apology. She no longer entertains the idea that she owes everyone access to her. She's not cold. She's careful, not rude, just rooted. She has learned through experience that some people feed on drama, and if you don't draw a line, they'll feast on your sanity. So, she draws it. Clearly, consistently, lovingly. She doesn't need to argue or defend. It's not about being right. It's about being well. She chooses her battles wisely, and most of the time, she chooses not to engage at all. Silence has become her shield, and solitude her strength. She finds power in prayer, healing in stillness, and clarity in distance. Because in the quiet, she connects with herself. She listens to her intuition. She receives downloads meant only for her ears, her path, her purpose. And she knows that kind of inner peace is too precious to jeopardize just to be liked, understood, or included. She's not here to fit in. She's here to live free. She knows now that the more peace she protects, the more purpose she walks in. The more she honors her boundaries, the more her spirit expands. The more she says no to what drains her, the more she says yes to what grows her. And she has no guilt about it. She doesn't shrink for the comfort of others, and she doesn't compromise for the sake of being accepted. Because if it costs her peace, it's not worth the price. Let them think she's distant. Let them say she's difficult. She knows the truth. She's disciplined. And in that discipline she thrives. In that sacred protection she rises. Because when a woman learns that peace is her superpower, she no longer chases people. She cultivates purpose. She no longer begs for love. She becomes love. And she no longer fights for space. She creates her own, filled with peace, purpose, and power. She is not afraid to walk away because she knows that holding on to what no longer serves her is the fastest way to lose herself. To the chosen woman, walking away is not a sign of weakness or defeat. It's an act of courage, clarity, and self-respect. She doesn't cling to spaces, people, or identities out of fear or habit. She understands that comfort can be a cage disguised as safety. When something no longer aligns with her truth, when it stifles her growth or dims her light, she releases it without hesitation or regret. She knows that staying in situations that limit her potential isn't loyalty, it's settling. And settling is the enemy of becoming. She's learned that the familiar can sometimes be the most dangerous illusion, because it tricks us into believing we're safe when we're really stuck. So she chooses freedom over familiarity, evolution over stagnation, and self-love over people-pleasing. Walking away doesn't mean she's giving up. It means she's giving herself permission to grow, She's willing to face the discomfort of starting over, the loneliness of new beginnings, and the uncertainty that comes with leaving behind what was once comfortable. She embraces the unknown as fertile ground for her transformation. Even if it means walking alone, she trusts that solitude is temporary and sacred, a space where she can rebuild stronger, clearer, and more aligned. She doesn't fear being alone because she's learned that being alone is better than being with the wrong energy. She doesn't stay to fill a void or to avoid confrontation. She moves forward with intention and grace. Every time she walks away, she reclaims a piece of herself that was lost in compromise or fear. She breaks free from the chains of obligation and steps into her power. And though the world may question her choices or try to pull her back into old patterns, she stands firm because she knows that peace and growth are worth the temporary discomfort. She's not afraid to lose people or opportunities that no longer resonate because she understands that every ending is a beginning in disguise. She welcomes new doors, fresh energy, and higher vibrations that align with her evolving spirit. Her walkaway is not a retreat, it's a declaration. I choose myself. I choose my healing. I choose my destiny. And in that choice, she becomes unstoppable. She moves with a quiet confidence that says, I know my worth and I won't settle for less. The power of her walkaway lies not in what she leaves behind, but in what she's walking toward. A life of authenticity, purpose, and unshakable peace. And that kind of courage is rare, beautiful, and utterly magnetic. She's being prepared, not punished. And though the loneliness can feel heavy, she knows deep in her spirit that it's not abandonment, it's alignment. The isolation is not accidental, it's intentional. It's not life being unfair, it's life being precise. It's God pulling her away, not to break her, but to build her, without the noise, without the distractions, without the opinions that once shaped her sense of self. She's not being ignored, she's being carved, not discarded, refined. There is a difference between punishment and preparation, and she's come to understand that solitude is not a sentence, it's sacred strategy. Because when you are chosen, your preparation cannot look like everyone else's. Your process will be private, your growth will be unseen, your stretching will be silent. No cameras, no applause, just you, your calling, and the weight of becoming. She's in a season where most would crumble, question, or quit. But she doesn't. She leans in. She prays harder. She listens deeper. Because somewhere deep within, she knows this is not the end. It's the beginning of something bigger than she can currently see. She's not being punished for her strength. She's being trusted with it. Trusted with vision, with influence, with power that requires more depth than surface living could ever provide. And so God hides her, not to hurt her, but to heal her, not to isolate her, but to insulate her. He prunes her in private so she can bear fruit in public. He strips away the noise so she can hear his voice. And though it feels like loss, it is actually gain, a deeper relationship with herself, a clearer connection to her purpose, a sharper discernment of who's for her and who's just near her. She's learning that the silence is not empty, it's full of instruction. The waiting is not wasted, it's full of transformation. The hiddenness is not rejection, it's protection, because she's being fortified for a future most people couldn't carry, a calling most wouldn't understand, a weight most couldn't hold. That's why the loneliness hits different. That's why the detachment feels so divine. She's not being prepared to return to the same level. She's being prepared to break generational patterns, to shatter ceilings, to rise in authority that demands solitude first. And while others measure progress by how seen they are, she measures hers by how still she can be and still believe. This is her training ground, not a place of defeat, but of divine development. And when the time is right, when the shaping is done, when her spirit is fully aligned with the assignment, she will emerge, not just seen, but sent, not just healed, but whole, not just ready, but unstoppable. Because the chosen woman is never punished by her isolation, she is prepared by it. And what God prepares in silence, no noise can undo. She leads even when no one is watching, because her leadership isn't a performance. It's a posture, a way of being, a deep commitment to truth that doesn't shift with the spotlight. The chosen woman doesn't lead for applause, recognition, or status. She leads because it's who she is, because purpose doesn't need an audience to be real. She walks with integrity in the shadows, just as fiercely as she would on a stage. Her consistency is her character, and her actions in private mirror the strength she shows in public. She doesn't put on a show, she embodies the message. And that embodiment is what sets her apart. In a world obsessed with being seen, she's more interested in being solid. While others chase visibility, she chases alignment. She doesn't need a crowd to validate her value, because she knows that real leadership begins in the unseen. How she speaks to herself when she's alone, how she honors commitments no one else knows about, how she treats people who have nothing to offer her. That's where her power comes from. That's where her influence is forged. And because she lives by principle rather than popularity, her presence carries weight. She's not swayed by trends or trapped by ego. She knows that titles can be taken and applause can fade, but authenticity can't be shaken. That's why she leads from within. That's why she chooses integrity when no one's keeping score. Because for her, leadership is not about being followed, it's about being faithful to the assignment. She understands that how she shows up in the quiet seasons prepares her for the moments when the world is watching. And even if that spotlight never comes, she's still fulfilled. Because her purpose is not about performance, it's about impact. It's about legacy. It's about doing what's right, even when it's hard, even when it's lonely, even when it goes unnoticed. She's mastered the discipline of leading herself first, managing her mindset, protecting her energy, nurturing her spirit. And from that place of internal strength, she becomes a lighthouse, not because she seeks attention, but because she's steady in storms. People may not always understand her level of discipline. They may overlook her consistency because it's not loud or flashy, but the fruit of her life speaks for itself. The peace she carries, the wisdom she walks in, the respect she earns without asking. She leads by example, not by demand. And that kind of leadership, the quiet, grounded, unshakable kind, is the kind that changes rooms, changes lives, changes legacies. So while the world is watching others perform, she is building a foundation. While others are chasing moments, she is building momentum. She may not be seen by everyone, but she is known by the right ones. And in the end, she doesn't need a stage to validate her calling. Her life is her message. Her walk is her witness.